We need everyone out there to build the permaculture movement.
How does the food forest concept translate into the actual learning process itself?
I think the diploma journey is really exciting.
Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Vine podcast. Today we have our first roundtable with three very special guests. We'll just do the round. Sarah, do you want to go first there? Quick introduction.
Introduction to me. So I'm Sarah Spencer. I'm founder of Think Like a Tree and Think Like a Forest. And Think Like a Tree is using nature-inspired principles for individuals to design the life they want. And Think Like a Forest is for businesses and organizations to design their businesses and organizations. I'm also a permaculturist, so I have a diploma and I'm part of the education working group in the UK.
Great stuff. Sean, do you want to go next there?
Sure. My name's Sean Jennings. I work with the Permaculture Institute of North America. We work to try and establish standards in permaculture education and the PDC and whatnot, so that people know what they're getting into when they sign up for a class and whatnot, so that we can turn out high quality students and practitioners out there. My background, I've kind of been mostly working permaculture as a landscaper, and I actually used to work with Eric Olson at the Permaculture Skills Center, where we ran a training ecological landscapers to go out and do landscaping around their communities. So kind of have a little background with a professional education program with that as well.
That's great. And Brandon?
Yeah, my name is Brandon Moncrief, and I'm a co-founder of GYGO, which stands for Grow Your Grass Off. And our main initiative there is to inspire and support people, in their food growing journey. So that could be a lot of different things. But after we sort of help them in that, we guide them through the GYGO Network. And so however their interests lie, wherever they are, they can get plugged in. So we try and have good resources available so people can jump right into that. And it's been a fun journey so far. And I'm excited to have our little chat here today about PDCs.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention the topic is permaculture education and training for professionals. So whether that's PDCs or beyond PDCs, or what we'll get into is the other land-based courses that aren't just a PDC. So who wants to start? Will we take it like what is the current state of play with permaculture education? Is it good? Is it disorganized? Is it any big opinions there?
I can start off. I know from experience, I've been in the permaculture world for about 20 years, and the current state of permaculture, it's gone up and down in how well permaculture is perceived, from being viable alternative for solutions, being kind of a woo-woo fringe sort of a practice. But I think there's organizations out there now that are really professionalizing permaculture and showing people what permaculture has to offer for the problems that we face in the world. So I really feel like people are seeing the value in permaculture education, not only how we can restore ecosystems, but how we can use permaculture to design our businesses and our lives, really. And I really kind of feel like there's a current new push towards permaculture education for people around the world, especially here in North America.
Yeah, I was at the Permaculture Festival of Permaculture near London last weekend, and it was really interesting to see a lot of new faces. So, sometimes in the permaculture world, you can kind of see the same faces turn up again and again at events. And yes, there were those familiar faces, but also there were loads and loads of new people, and and a real diversity of backgrounds and reasons for being there. And I think that's really exciting. So I think it's partly the fact of people are obviously waking up to the crises that we're facing, and we're having a big cost of living crisis as well at the moment in the UK. So it's not necessarily coming out of good times or anything, but it is, permaculture education is so needed. When you think of all the problems of the world, then the answer is permaculture, really, for pretty much everything. So, it's just how, we need to be able to get that out more widely and more quickly, really.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that we offer with the GYGO is a podcast. So we call that the GYGO Show. And we had Joel Salatin on recently, and we had a master class as well that we were promoting, doing a webinar with Dave Spicer and Greg Nibbs. So that was fun. And so the master class is focused on mainframe design. So we got a pretty good group, about 20 or so people together on that to go through our sort of slides of what's possible with permaculture. And so we had some new people come in there, and I've always enjoyed talking with people about it. It's just, obviously I can just go on for days, because it's one of those things that you just, once it clicks for you, I feel like you really, it's just easy to want to share that, So in terms of the state affairs that I see, we had one guest, her name's Embry, and she was looking at a lot like Sean was saying, I think is almost overlaying it on top of how education can be used, and so we're interested in sort of seeing how that can relay into the education space. So like how, let's just say you've got a food forest, how does the food forest concept translate into the actual learning process itself? And so we had her on our show. She had some amazing points. So that's a little bit more detailed maybe than we need to go into, but it's kind of like looking at it holistically, which is obviously what I think permaculture can bring to the table. How does somebody's experience in education, how can it benefit from looking at it through that lens of permaculture? So that's kind of my quick take on where I see kind of the evolution. It's always organic, I feel like, but yeah, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, I might have been, I suppose a few years ago, I would have said, I'm not going near the associations. I'm just doing my own thing. But I've changed my mind recently. So I've just done the diploma in the UK with the Permaculture Association. And for me, that's just the sort of structure my next steps and see where I want to go. And they sort of get that mentorship. So it's sort of aligning with a more structured approach to developing myself as a permaculture practitioner and seeing where that leads.
I think the diploma journey is really exciting. So, for people watching who don't know the traditional route, you might do an intro to permaculture, then you do the permaculture design certificate, which is a 72-hour course available in various different formats. And then only after that can you move on to the diploma, which is 10 designs. So it's really applied. And the really fantastic thing I think about the diploma is that you really do go on a journey through those 10 designs. So in my experience, so I started off doing a lot of land-based design. So we have a small holding here. I was doing several of my designs around that. I've co-founded a community woodland social enterprise, so I did some designs for my diploma about that. And then I went down this kind of totally different route of health and well-being, and then brought that into my diploma. And then I brought the organizational design into my diploma, and then my health challenges sort of sent me off in a different direction. And I think that's what's so magical about the diploma, that actually you sort of start off thinking maybe that you're doing one thing, and then your life sort of, and reading and research and whatever can send you off in a totally different direction. And that's where I think Like a Tree came from my diploma, effectively. So it's there's not that many other sort of more traditional educational routes, I would say, where you can really bespoke it to your life and also just be so flexible with it sort of throughout that journey.
And the permaculture, the UK one is like 10 projects. Sean, is that similar to the Pina one?
The Pina one, the Permaculture Institute of North America has a diploma program that is trying to take the next step after a PDC. So it depends on whether or not you are aiming to become a designer, an educator, installer of systems. We have different routes that you can take in the diploma program. So if you want to be a designer, then yeah, you have to complete a certain amount of designs and submit them for review. And hopefully a few of those designs got installed in reality and whatnot. And we have mentors for each track, so that for most people, after they get through with the PDC, they're kind of left wondering, what do I do next? Like how do I move forward from here? Well, the idea of pairing you up with mentors for whatever track you choose, we help nurture you step by step along the way to take those next steps on your permaculture path. And so I really feel like the diploma program helps. It's a really good one-on-one or hands-on sort of way for you to kickstart your career in permaculture, whatever that may be. If you want to teach PDCs or become an installer, we hook you up with those mentors, and we also have connections to get you those first projects as well. And we've seen a lot of people go through the PDC now. We have about close to 80, or the diploma program, we have about close to 80 diplomates now, and they've gone on to do really awesome work in their field. And I feel like the diploma program we offer is something that hasn't been offered yet for people who take the PDC, and it's a niche that's really been needing to be filled, because people are constantly feeling like, what do I do now? How do I put what I learn in practice? I feel like that's more what we need out around the world. The more we get the initial idea of what permaculture is through the PDC, but then how do we apply those concepts in the real world? A lot of times we don't know the steps that we need to make, and if anything, the permaculture education space needs to focus on the next steps to get people away from the classroom and learning theoretically about permaculture, and out into the field and actually implementing projects and showing what permaculture can do, restore degraded landscapes, or to rehabilitate corporations into ethical corporations, whatever it may be. Permaculture has those tools. We just need to start giving those tools to people to implement them.
Yeah, I don't think you had that problem, Brandon, trying to decide. You just went out and do you want to tell us about that, about your experience, your post PDC, all your travels, your work things?
Yeah, for sure. I think I agree totally with what you guys are saying. I think that's some great stuff there, Sean, as far as, there's the corporate side. Obviously we can do a better job, and that's kind of, maybe I didn't explain it that well, but the masterclass, I think, is kind of that concept of how can we get in there and go for something and learn as we go. And some people may not be ready for the PDC. If we look at homesteaders, we're talking to Joel, and he was saying he's seen a ton of people wanting to go back to the land, but then they get on the land and they just don't have the tools, and then it may just be in 2-3 years they just give up because it's just too much for them to take on. But yeah, I think for me, I got trained up in California by Penny Livingston at the Regenerative Design Institute, and a lot of cool projects over there, and people connected into that sort of hub. And but I got into their internship program that was about 9 months, and so I had kind of a longer PDC. Kind of back to your point, Sarah, earlier about there's different options of just doing kind of your quick 72-hour, and then maybe there's a 9-month all seasons course. And so I kind of had both of those, but afterwards I definitely kept going as far as going to do internships. And funny enough, I did a internship in Hawaii, Sean, on the Big Island, and so that was a lot of fun. So I've always traveled. I'm in Costa Rica now, so it's kind of the same story for me. Is I love just learning and exploring, and so for me, I see value in both, no matter what, whether it's a PDC and you're getting it from an instructor who takes you through, and working with Greg and Dave. These guys they basically are echoing a very similar thing, is that you can't discount the PDC at all, because it's a methodology. Once you learn that, you get down into there and you say, okay, these are some skills that are rooted in a lot of experience that was shared. And so it's a great thing to absorb, but it can be overwhelming, and then you sort of left with, what do I do now at the end? And so having that ability to say, okay, this is all great theory and it can help you as a methodology, but it's not going to go put food in the ground. It's looking for you. It's looking at training you to see patterns and see these things that normally a lot of people don't take the time to look at. So it frames it really well. But then, yeah, I can't say enough in terms of going to a farm, getting experience, milking goats and sheep, taking care of animals, if that's your thing. and getting that sort of, even if it's because I've worked at different gardens that are kind of like market garden style setups, and so you get a rhythm and you learn, and then you feel like you can, okay, I can go do this. And so part of the stage I'm at now is demonstrating it on kind of a 2.5 acre piece of land here in Costa Rica. So we've got, fish pond, and we've got greenhouse and bees, and we've got a little casita to rent out. And so it's coming along, but it's a labor of love at the same time. So yeah, hopefully that addressed that, Cormac.
Yeah, and you touched on the different methods or the different delivery mechanisms of PDC. Mine's was, I think, over 14 weeks, delivered online completely, and then a project at the end. I couldn't attend a land-based one because I simply didn't have 2 weeks to pack up the family and say, cheerio, I'm off. It wouldn't have worked. So it's good it was online. How was all your PDC, Sarah? Was yours 2-week residential?
Mine was in Nottingham, and that was over several weekends. I can't remember how many weekends, but over the space of a year. I think it sort of started in January and ended in October, and we did a presentation of our designs sort of in the last session, and that was really good. I think it was like a week, 2 days of a weekend, and there were a few trips as well to see various other projects, and that worked really well for me. So I tried to do a training of teachers permaculture, which was like an intensive, like 10 days, and it was just too much for me health wise. So I think the great thing about the different methods of accessing the PDC, for example, like the online ones, is really good with people who maybe got chronic illness like myself, or who've got family commitments like yourself, Cormac. There's kind of something to suit everyone now, I think. So I think for some people who like the 2 weeks and they want to get in that headspace and they've got quite a lot of stamina, then that's okay. But for other people, that intensity of both physical being and learning is just too overwhelming. So it just depends on your learning style, I think.
Yeah, I like how there's a lot of options for the PDC now. When I first took my PDC, it was back in 2005, and they were mostly 2-week courses, and you really had to commit. And you commit a lot of money, a lot of time. A lot of times you have to commit to being in a new location for a little while. And so it could add up in the pocketbook, and it kind of makes it made it prohibitive for a lot of people, but it was also a really great experience because I got to connect with people in a different way. I got to connect with teachers, and through that, since my PDC was local, I got to build relationships with other people in my area, and that kind of helped out when I was starting out. But I do wish that there was more online resources. I feel like now you don't even have to sign up for a PDC. You can get a PDC for free online pretty easily. But there's some, they have the weekend formats, which seem good. Like you're able to distill a lot of the information and kind of sit with it time and have more time to work on a design as part of the PDC. Each one has their pros and cons. But that's what's cool about today, I think, is that there are so many options for anybody to really take a PDC.
So you mentioned free there, and why would I understand, right? If you haven't got the resource, you would take a free one. What free and paid would you recommend? Basically, if you had the resource, paying, like, why would you pay if it's free?
Why would you pay if it's free? Well, you never know what you're gonna get, right? And there's probably a lot of free people out there, free resources where they they may not be the best teacher. You may get some of the education stuff that may be hard to digest, and perhaps they follow a curriculum that isn't based primarily on the original curriculum side by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. And that's what Pina tries to do, is try and find those PDCs that do stick with the original curriculum, so that you are learning what was meant to be taught. and why if you just don't have the money, take a free one and learn some of the concepts, principles, the ethics, learning about patterning. That's all out there. Whether or not though you value something that's free, that's a different story. I know that when I pay money for something, I'm going through that course. I'm going to learn. I'm going to study. But if I take it for free, a lot of times it disappears in my email box, and that course is down on the bottom of the list, and I forget about it because it was a free thing that I said I was going to take, but it was free. So it's up to you, but I'm just saying it's really cool to have all those options out there for whatever people need.
Yeah, and I think there's something in there about with the online paid ones as well, is that it's also about the community of people that you meet, isn't it? When I was chatting with Maura Gamble from the Australian Permaculture Institute last weekend, and she was saying, because she's got a totally online one, and it's the community that people then join and they meet up with each other, and that that kind of dimension of having that cohort of peers is really special, I think. Yeah.
That's how I got my first design job, was through somebody on the course putting an advertisement on the job on the course Facebook page.
Yeah.
And that led the work from that. So it definitely a community. I would second that.
Yeah. The other thing to say about paid ones as well is, like, you were saying, Sean, about the efforts that PINA goes to it with in terms of the curriculum, and that's the same for the Permaculture Association in the UK as well. That that they do. If you're supporting one of those courses, then you are also and you're joining the association, you are actually paying towards the development of those resources. And I know the association is doing a really big lot of work now around bringing in better kind of resources around equity and inclusion and diversity. So these things, yes, they're really sort of grounded in Mollison and homegrown originally, but we do have to sort of adapt to a certain extent for kind of current times as well, and the associations put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah, I think it is the good variety, and you can see I've seen an advertisement for a vegan permaculture course and all these kinds of things. It's good that you can sort of put your own slant on it, as long as you have the core curriculum. I suppose next up would be the diversity of courses. So we chat about the PDCs and the diploma, and I suppose the alternate answer is, do you want to chat about that? Is about the diversity of the different types of like business courses and things like that.
Yeah, that's it. So there are various people kind of around the world who've done permaculture courses who then want to take it off in a different direction from the kind of traditional land-based PDC. So in the UK, one of those people was Luby McNamara, who wrote People and Permaculture and then Cultural Emergence. So she's really developed the people care ethic. So we've got the three ethics, but the people care ethic was underdeveloped, I think, until Luby did her work. But there are quite a lot of people in mainstream, so like Kate Rayworth has studied permaculture, I understand, who's like done donut economics, and it's gone off in lots of different directions. There's regenerative business, which is obviously a big part of my work with the Think Like a Forest regenerative organization programs. And for me, and I think that it's similar to other people that I've spoken about, it's that it's always good for people to know how to grow food and where food comes from, but not everybody needs to do that, and not everybody wants to do that. So what about the people who are in businesses or health and well-being? Can we develop sort of different routes so that they can still access the deep wisdom from permaculture and other living systems approaches? And that was my motivation, really, to try and reach an audience that wouldn't normally access permaculture. And so far, I mean, Think Like a Tree's been going for 6 years now, but that has that has come into reality. And what I really love that does happen sometimes is somebody will come on one of my courses and then they'll email me saying, oh, I've signed up for a PDC now. And I absolutely love that, because then they're kind of accessing it via a different route, but I kind of feel they probably wouldn't have done if they hadn't have come, on one of my courses. So, we've got this diversity now, and I think it's important that we continue to sort of expand that whilst remaining true to the founding principles and ethics, and what is really, really strong about the permaculture way.
What comes to mind there when you say that, Sarah, is just, I think it's totally great to be able to translate it. And like you said, they come in on these different angles. So, but I think the thing that I guess I noticed is that the stuff inside the manual, let's say, is holistic, and so I think to me, that's really what attracted me the most, is that you're all of a sudden it's a paradigm shift for a lot of people. It's like, oh, like, let's just take monocropping, it's like that at the end of the day, there's a crisis moment. So, that seems to be that there's a lot of pressure in the world today, even, so that this stuff is really, it's great that we've developed a lot of this stuff over time. But I guess that's kind of my point, is that, the difference between running a business, because to me, it's all connected, right? And there's sort of this is where the mycorrhizae underneath, the ground, there's this network, and that's kind of what we all really are part of. And you can't take one part out, it's all connected. So then I think that's what comes to mind, is that this holistic approach to living, because we can't take our work life out of our other life, it's just, so I see that as a good thing for sure.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, Brandon. I'm reminded by my old permaculture teacher in LA, Larry Santoyo. He says you don't do permaculture. You use permaculture in what you do, and so it encompasses everyday life, really. And when we start to, when we learn about the principles of PDC and the ethics, and start to recognize patterns, we can see how we can apply permaculture with everything that we do. Another example Larry likes to give is, when you're designing a business, for example, you have a laundromat in the middle of LA, and everyone's sitting there waiting for their laundry. Why not put a bar next door, and people can go next door and get some drinks, and then maybe chat about, build community at the same time, and maybe something else comes out of that whole interaction of just kind of seeing a need and fulfilling that gap in something that isn't garden related, but is in business related or just community related, and it's just out there everywhere. Permaculture is all around us, and yeah, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, one thing I'm really passionate about with bringing it to new audiences is that they still remain really nature connected, because obviously when you do, when you do use permaculture kind of in a growing sense, your hands are in the soil, aren't they? You are deeply connected to nature, so there's that obvious link. So when we take it into businesses or to individuals kind of with their health and well-being, I think it's really important that we keep that really deep nature connection link, that we don't make it an abstract sort of set of principles, that we actually both are connecting with nature, but also learning from nature, because that's where the permaculture principles came from, that they were observed in living systems, and so wherever we take it, we need to be keeping that sort of direct link, and that's really democratizing as well, I think, because it means that people don't have to necessarily pay for a course. They can actually just go and walk in the woods and think, okay, so what can I observe? Oh well, I like you were both saying, that diversity in nature of as opposed to the monocropping. oh, I'm observing that. Yes, let me take that back into my life and have like a diverse community of people around me, or a diverse workplace. So, I love the fact that we can observe these principles sort of directly, and add new ones as well, because obviously there's the Holmgren principles, but there's a whole other set of principles, and permaculture is quite generous, I suppose, in welcoming new principles as long as they can be sort of observed in nature. And I think that is really, like I say, democratizing for the movement.
Yeah, I think Sarah, you hit it spot on. The connection to nature is pretty key. I think that's why it's the first ethic and principle is earth care. If we lose that connection, even if we have all the other principles in our toolkit or the patterning, if we're not coming from a place of earth care, then what are we doing? We can still cause a lot of destruction in the world without having that connection to nature. And I really feel like you need that connection in order to understand what you're trying to protect, right? Like I lived in the city and I grew up in the city, and I know, I didn't know sand from clay or one tree from another tree. I didn't know anything. And there's no reason for me to really care about when a lot got covered up for another building. It didn't mean anything to me because I never had a connection to it. But once I learned the connection to nature, like I really saw the value in every little thing. Like even just in the lawn, there's a whole jungle going on in the grass right outside your front doorstep. And so if we don't have that connection, why would we ever want to protect it? And so that's key right there. We have to have that connection to nature.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing, Cormac, if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I agree totally what you guys are saying, and the balance is what comes to mind too. Like if we're talking corporate world or even just your job, like for me, if I'm working from home, so I gotta, I need to take my breaks, right? I need to get into nature and not be on the screen, and and have that balance, because I think nowadays, to your point, Cormac, earlier, of like how are the PDCs evolving as we get really tech heavy with AI and all these things that are moving us in that direction, getting back to I got to just go disconnect from the virtual world and go connect outside. I think that's huge.
So then, for someone who's just, for example, finished the PDC, is not sure what they do, and doesn't see of teaching, designing, what opportunities is there for people to go on out and meet that and get people more connected? Is there any particular opportunities that you could think of?
Well, I know Pina has the membership and diploma program where that's what we try and do is connect people with other people out there so that they can try and get started in the field that they're interested in. There's Facebook, there's groups, there's lots of stuff out there for people to connect these days. It seems like, and you could easily find community projects all around the world really these days. I found like 10 years ago, I started a community project in LA, and that's where a lot of people were able to connect and meet up with other people that were interested in the same thing. And a lot of my friends created new careers out of it, just by the people they met in that group. And so just by connecting in your local permaculture scene can be a real huge first step.
I'd say as well, though, that when you've done a PDC, you've usually done one design, and it's usually for a garden or a piece of land or something like that. But you've learned not only the ethics and the principles, but also a design process. So step by step, you've surveyed the site, you've interviewed a client, you've done your mapping, you've looked at all your sectors, and you've put pen to paper and come up with a design, and you've evaluated and tweaked. You've done this design process. So what I would say is, before you decide what your next step is do a design for your future. So that's effectively what we do with Think Like a Tree. It's a design process. We use a design cycle, which is very similar to Luby McNamara's design web that many people have come across. And, you know, you can use these design process. I mean, use the Sadimet or whatever design process you're familiar with. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be an unfamiliar one. And just, you know, start off. So the surface survey or would be like, survey your life. You know, what do you enjoy? What do you know, do effectively a client interview on yourself? Like, what are your strengths? What do you want? You know, what do you want? What are your values? So you can effectively use those same design processes to design the future that you want in permaculture. And that can be anything from, you know, what I want to do is be a permaculture designer. It might be I want to be a grower. I might want to take it out into businesses. You know, I want to teach it. There's kind of pretty much as many routes in permaculture as there are permaculturists. You know, we're all unique. We use the kind of value diversity principles of each sort of designing our own journey, and that's what's so magical about it. And I think, you know, it's really magical. You can design your own journey that's unique for you, finding your niche. Sometimes that can be a bit scary because it's like, you know, we're used to having these traditional career routes where it's like, oh, what will I do this and then I do this next, whereas this design approach can be a little bit, you know, more of a leap of faith. Okay, so if I put one foot after another in this design approach, then eventually I'll get to something that's going to be good for me and the world. But essentially that's, you know, a much more holistic and better route for the person than just, you know, just kind of following somebody else's route, basically.
Yeah, I love it, Sarah. Is life gonna are you gonna design your life, or is life gonna design it for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I think I say in my book, like, you know, if you're not designing your life, then somebody else is designing it for you. Because, you know, at the end of the day, at the moment, we've got, you know, big businesses, we've got governments, we've got media, we've got marketers. They're all trying to design our lives, aren't they? They're telling us what we should buy, you know, how we should live, you know, what we should think, how we should feel. I'm not having any of that. I want to design my own. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, yeah, as far as connecting, I think it's interesting because it's sort of this push-pull for me too. Once again, we get to the virtual, so you got online and you can connect to so many people nowadays and find your tribe. And I think that's valuable, finding people that you can bounce ideas off of and everything. But at the end of the day, I guess I'm sort of predisposed to say you got to get into your local community, you know, just as much, you know, and connect with people who are nearby, and whether that's your neighbor and you're sharing extra food, and, you know, at the end, like if things go bad, you know, who are those people in your community who can help you out, and you can help them out, you know? So I feel like it's got to be a, you know, multi-pronged, you know, sort of approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think community is the key to feeling less lonely as well, because a lot of people who want to do good in the world would, you know, start off by doing things in their own lives, and then it can feel quite lonely. So the community route, yeah, that's something that I did myself, you know, kind of as a step on from that kind of doing small holding pretty alone or just with my family. No. So yeah, I definitely second that, Brandon.
Well, yeah, all great stuff. To me, to answer my own question, I would say just take action and just do something, because that worked for me when I get my PDC. I didn't know what to do, so built a website. Then seen a job, got a job because I built the website, and then it got me going. But it was taking that first bit of action and just sitting and building a website. And then the other thing would be is if you design websites, bring permaculture into that, and make that your angle, make that your niche. If you're an accountant, go seek out permaculturists who need their books done, and be that expert in your area that provides services for other people. Like It doesn't always have to be design or education or the sort of standard ones. As well, so Sarah, you have the Think Like a Tree. So you serve individuals and companies as well.
Yeah, so Think Like a Tree is this design process for people to come and then design the life that they want. So people come for like health, well-being, or relationships, or career change is quite a big one, actually. So, you know, people are kind of exploring new angles for a change of career, or work-life balance, that kind of thing. So that kind of quite naturally led on to actually developing a program specifically for businesses and organizations. So that's what the programs that we're running now for businesses and organizations are, and that's taking permaculture. But then I've also gone out and kind of learned a lot about regenerative business and biomimicry and other sort of nature inspired disciplines that they've got so much in common that we can really be sharing, I think, between those disciplines, maybe under the banner of regenerative. I don't, you know, that's a bit of a nebulous term at the moment, but it is, you know, I think bringing it to businesses and organizations is something that I identified that could really multiply the impact. So if we get it out into organizations, and then through that they learn about permaculture and connecting with nature, being inspired by living systems, then we can really rocket it, I hope, out into the wider world. Because we do really need to be, you know, at this point of, you know, in all these intersecting crises, I do feel a real sense of urgency to try and get it out into the world, you know, in a bigger way. Yeah.
And Brandon, you have the masterclass. Is that still running, or is that?
Yeah, we've actually got a discount here for the next 2 weeks. Growyourgrassoff.com, you'll find it there. But yeah, basically the masterclass is not a PDC, but it's sort of approaching a property. So you come in just like you would in a PDC, and hopefully you've got a piece of land or you're just about to buy a property, and we can take you through the mainframe. And those mainframe items really are, you know, water, access structures, and then your sectors and zones. And so it's kind of like you're taking the homeowner on that experience. They don't have to go through the whole, you know, PDC, but it is a 5-week, you know, course that they can sort of trickle through. And so, yeah, that's something that I think will be, you know, it's definitely useful, and it's any level is, you know, welcome to come in. You don't have to be advanced or have a PDC already.
And we have a course on at the minute, PDC to Professional, teaching digital design. All these links will be put down in the description. Sean, you have your competition on at the minute?
With Pioneer right now, we're sort of a professional organization for permaculturists. We're also reaching out to beginners to help them find their place in the PDC. But we are currently running a design contest where people who've taken the PDC are invited to enter a design as long as they're based in North America. For the chance to win $5,000 for the best permaculture design, or there's also $1,000 at stake for the best new designer. And we have a few other prizes in there for people who are entering. We just want to kind of get people designing. We want to showcase, you know, high quality designs, people out there in the world. And we want to help people out there that are members of PINA and that are trying to create careers out of permaculture. We want to help promote their work so that they can also move up in the permaculture world and start to make a living. So that's what the goal of the excuse me. That's what the goal of the design contest is. And yeah, if you're out there and you live in North America, please sign up. It runs till October 22nd.
And that is absolutely fantastic, and I love, you know, this idea in permaculture is really quite widespread about promoting each other's work as well, isn't it? You know, kind of we lift everybody's boats, don't we, by promoting other people's work and raising the profile of permaculture. So I'm always keen to do that in mine. Is this going out live, Cormac? Because our deadline for sign up for our regenerative organisation fundamentals is the 13th of October. So it's not we've got less than 2 weeks. I'm not sure when this is going out, but there will be another cohort in the spring. So we've already got enough people signed up that we know that it's going to run next time, which is really exciting. So yeah,
that's great news. We'll make sure to get that out. I think we've covered what PDCs, diplomas, and other additional courses. Anybody else want to bring anything up now before we wrap it up? Did we miss anything?
Probably the intro to permaculture. So if people have not had, they're coming to permaculture fresh and they don't, know very much about it, then find an intro to permaculture online or, kind of.
Funny you should say that. Sorry.
Have you got one?
Well, we have an introduction to permaculture. It's free. It's finepermaculture.com/grow. So it's just not so much permaculture. It's actually for beginner gardeners. So if you're starting in the garden, it's a good place to start. There's 10 episodes up there at the minute. So each episode has 3 blogs, 3 videos, and a podcast where we talk about our own experiences for each topic. Like 1 week was composting, hot composting, cold composting, and then composting with worms. And then we chat about our own experiences. So we'll be building that out as well through the summer. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fantastic. Because I think it's like you said, just get started. Just watch some videos, do an intro to permaculture, and also if you've done a PDC, why not share your knowledge? Get a group of your neighbors around or your friends around and run an intro to permaculture, just to get them to know what it is, because so many people have got the wrong idea about what permaculture is, and they've got maybe like an old-fashioned thing, like you mentioned before, Sean, about it being like really woo-woo or hippies or whatever, and it is it is ethics, principles, design processes, professionals, tried and tested methods. And the more we can be sharing that, the more widely people will realize that it is really the solution for everything, really, but without trashing the planet.
And as well, I would say in terms of education is, like we're running courses at Vine, but like we're not the most advanced people in the world. There's always somebody one step behind you, and don't be afraid that even if you're quite new and you've got some skill, they put it online and share it, because there'll be someone in your same zone as you, same sector, same locality, might see that and you might help them out, and it just opens them up. So don't be afraid to put stuff out if you're new as well.
I'd like to encourage people who are new to go out there and put stuff out. We need people out there sharing what they know. Just like you're saying, Cormac. We need everyone out there to build permaculture movement. So it's not just on the fringe anymore. We need everyone to know what permaculture is, and that requires all of us to step up. So probably if you're listening to this podcast, you're already somewhat into permaculture. Maybe you've already learned a lot about permaculture. What's stopping you from going out there and taking action? The only thing is you. No one else is stopping you. So I encourage everyone out there to go out and share what you know and help encourage other people to make positive changes in their lives now, today. Because we don't have time anymore to wait for other people to do it for us. It's going to be up to us. It's going to be our community that builds each other up and strengthens each other. So it starts with you. Get out there and do it, everyone. That's just all I can say.
Yeah, well said. I would just add a little bit in terms of one of the things, because I initially found out about permaculture when I was watching Bill Mollison do his Global Gardener series, so, and one of the things I picked up from that was there's an evolution to it. So there's never like a one-way answer to do this thing. There's innovation built in as far as I could see. So like you're saying there, Sean, as far as people, get out there, even if you're new, I agree that mistakes are those little moments that you can learn. And if we're afraid to make mistakes, I think we're not doing it right. Get out there, make mistakes, learn from it, learn from other people, keep going. And I'm with you. Let's get it going.
Yeah, unschool all the stuff you learned in school about making mistakes.
Mistakes are good.
Yeah, guys, that's been really great. Thank you very much, and everybody's links will be in the description, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.